Okay, and that was his last show
Last
ever?
live show, still to this day.
All right.
They rescheduled the rest of the tour for early 2024. But I hope it's not his last because it was phenomenal. One of the best shows. I think I'm closing in on about 20
Nice.
concerts.
I like that.
Since '84.
How old is Bruce Springsteen now?
Low 70s.
He does not look that look. I make a lot of
Yeah.
jokes, but when you look at the guy and the way he dresses for like his age, I've always thought that it's like he always does it appropriately. You know what I mean? Like I look at him and he's got like leather jacket, maybe a hoodie. It's kind of tight on him. He's in good shape.
Yeah, well, he's doing TRT, right?
Gotta be, right? I mean, is he a health nut?
He rips off his shirt in every show now. I don't need it, but the ladies seem to like it.
Yeah.
Some of the guys.
I mean, they don't get less horny
but
as they get older.
He's still showing off. But when you look at some of the contemporaries, you got McCartney in his 80s, Jagger, and Keith Richards just turned 80. They're coming around in June. They're still banging it out. So why not?
Yeah, but they got all drug-riddled bodies.
It was crazy that they're still doing it.
It
though,
is
right?
pretty crazy.
Like even I saw
It's
Willie
the Rolling
Nelson.
Stones, presented by AARP.
All right, so let's get into it.
What does that mean?
I love his shift when he goes. That
he
segue.
used to try and ease into things. Now, as an older man, he's just like, all right, let's get the brass tacks.
I want to talk about being a radio program director.
Hard.
Because there's a lot.
You've been laughing at me for 10 years with this. Jeff.
This is something I wanted to do. You know that, right? Like, that was my goal.
Yeah.
My goal.
Was it?
Oh, excuse me. My cookies
Hello.
are done.
Don't overcook them like I do.
Actually, you know what that sound was? That was our interview with Jim Colbert, the video exporting out.
All right, okay.
Yeah, that was my computer letting me know I'm trying to do too many things over here.
Oh, I see. That's a great look into my
Good
job
segue.
because I do the same exact thing. I'm always multitasking and I'm always doing more than once. So 100% concentration on any one thing is tough. Someone told me if I should take Adderall because I could turn in, like I could kick up to that next
Hey, I
level.
know that
Oh
guy.
yeah, I
Yeah.
got some.
I want some.
See? Everyone's got, my kids got it. I don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't have it either.
I
don't
would
have
give
it
it to
either.
you, but I'm addicted to it. So I need it, and I'll do anything for it.
He's addicted to that.
Anything.
He's addicted to gambling,
Yeah.
Adderall,
It's what-
Viagra.
I'm afraid if I did it, I'd really like it. Like it would open
it's
up.
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
And so that's why I don't.
When I take it, I
that's what
feel
you
my
do.
brain explode on the way here. And I'm like, yeah!
I'm ready.
But it's going too fast, so I can't even find the memory or whatever
Yeah.
I'm doing.
Yeah,
You don't
Yes,
even you
yeah.
don't even know what you were talking about right there. He also
Where
said
are
it-
you?
He also said it makes him rapid fire pee like I do. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
have peed before you got here. I have peed 26 times this morning.
Oh,
Yeah,
Tom
yeah,
has
yeah.
to pee like every 5 minutes.
No,
well,
yeah,
well
yeah.
now we're fighting it out in the bathroom.
The Adderall,
Might
the
have to stand
caffeine.
side by side.
We're
in
always
there.
out of toilet paper. I don't know what that's.
Oh, I forgot to get some. I'm sorry.
What my big swollen prostate?
No,
do?
that's me. That's me.
How many
Yeah,
times a
I've
night
never
you getting
even
up?
looked at mine.
How many times a night?
I take so much medical marijuana when I go to sleep, it's impossible to get me up.
Yeah.
So I just
Oh,
pee
wow.
the bed.
Okay.
Enjoy that while you can.
So back to business.
Okay.
All right, Jack.
Radio program director.
Let's start
go.
with how would you describe to someone who doesn't know anything about being a program director what your job is?
Wow. So managing managing a station, which I used to naively think before I did it was, you just make sure everything's in order and they have everything. But really, any form of management is management of people.
Okay.
And it's the people who do the work and in our case present the topic. And what's interesting about radio is for someone to want to be in entertainment, for someone to want to be on radio, you have to have a certain amount of ego to believe that people should listen to you, that you have something that people should pay attention to. There's a certain level of ego required. What's interesting is trying to manage people with a lot of egos.
Okay.
And some people can leave their ego on the air. Some people kind of carry it with them and believe it precludes them from doing things like answering some email. Come on. How often do I send email? Oh, you guys know. Anyway.
I know who you're yelling at.
I got PTSD. Like,
Get 'em.
when he said that, I was like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening again.
That, by the way, that's beneath me. I don't know if you know that, Jack.
By the way, Tom can't read, so you don't have to worry about him reading your emails.
So, I'm also curious, Jack, where
Yes, sir.
if you're the program director for a station, in like talk radio is vastly different than music radio. Although the job description of program director is the same, like across the board. Because I looked it up.
What Jack does comparatively to any other program director is way different.
Well, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because like in
and he may even have to do the music aspects in addition, because I know we still dance around some pretty sophisticated and like local rooted music programs.
Yeah.
So on the weekends, and then so it's interesting to me because of a music program director for a music station. I imagine there's X amount of catalog of music that has to be played. And obviously, with like something as big as iHeart, it comes down from corporate or whatever. Then you have your music, and then you have your formula of like, all right, here's the breaks, here's where the DJ should talk, and then I'm sure they got it down to a formula that they keep on, pressing to their employees. You follow the formula. This is what works. But then with talk, it's like, all right, you can't really decide what each host and show is going to actually talk about every second of the time.
No, in fact, if you do that, you may end up doing the exact opposite of what you were trying to
Correct.
accomplish.
And so you get what I'm saying. Like, how do you look at that?
Yeah,
Jack?
so with music, and I always say they can decide, all right, whatever the artist of the day is, if the ratings aren't where they want them, they can just change up the music, right? There are certain things, and in talk, as Daniel alluded to, you don't want to control it. Like, the man who was program director when I started, or in charge of programming in our station, Chris Campmeyer. Hey, bud. He always thought that you put people, the right people in the job, and stay out of their way. That was his MO. And so as I became assistant program director 10 years ago, he would, kind of train me that. Oh, I just saw it. I kind of learned it as he interacted with the show.
Yeah.
And so you allow them to do their job, but there are certain things you can manage. So as a program director of a music station can fine tune the music as well as when the music plays. In a talk format, the controllables, the things you can control to help put yourself in the best position to achieve rating success is when you go to break, how well you promote. They call it the blocking and tackling. It's the X's and O's of how will you promote to keep an audience wanting to stay tuned or come back. So they call it setting the appointment. So you have a contest coming up. You have Rolling Stones tickets. Make sure you're promoting when they can listen to make sure they're there for that moment. That's the reason we do these $1,000 cash contests 4 times a year.
Yeah.
Is promoting that chance. So it's stay tuned to the top of the hour for your chance to win $1,000. So it's it's using those little techniques, having your air staff, your talk staff, implement those and allow them to generate the creative, the content, which hopefully is interesting enough where people want to listen.
Can we talk about the contest for a second, Jack? Because it's the greatest prank you've ever played on all the listeners. Because you have to text Piano in, and then the contest rules are, hey, if an unknown number calls you, you have to pick up to win.
I've always liked that.
Any unknown number, I'm like, wait a minute.
At any event I've ever been to, I've always had more respect for them when they're like, sorry, is this person here? You don't win the Harley. Next person.
And then
Next person.
I was like, wait a minute. Every unknown call that I get is a scam. So now you're getting me to answer every scam that ever called.
But I did enter one time leaving your show, and then I did answer the phone a couple times the next day because it like kind of got me. It got me.
So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Fortunately, Real Radio has done the best in this it's a national contest.
Yeah.
We've done the best in the Orlando, Central Florida area. Every time we've done it, we've exceeded. We've had more winners than the other stations, and we're also, in the top few stations nationwide. And one of the early things I realized is, wait, I don't pick up the phone if I don't know the number, right? So I'm like, what are people doing? So I started promoting that early on. Years ago, I started promoting pick up the phone. Now it's become part of the national. Other stations have kind of caught on to that and are doing that as well. So it was one of the things early on. I'm like, wait, you got to tell people, because what we do get every time we have a winner, they capture the audio, they record that phone call, and they make it available for us to use as a promote, because they want us to promote every time we have a winner, so other people know, oh, Dan in Winter Park won, I can win too. So using his audio. But one of the things, 9 times out of 10, that person, they always ask the person, why did you pick up the phone? 9 times out of 10, they will say, because they told me on the radio to make sure I answered the phone. And so I knew it was working, so we just kept doubling down.
Interesting.
And now every promo I make, Dan Stone will also remind you, and answer the phone. I think it went from no caller. It went from an unknown number, with a Cincinnati area code, to no caller ID during the pandemic because people were working from home. So,
gotcha.
But
can you put iHeartRadio?
Right.
I'm not a business
if it said
genius.
Merry Christmas from iHeart.
Or
be
just
pretty dope.
iHeart, or you won. Pick up. Instead of every time I do pick up.
What if it says Santa Claus? That'd be pretty dope.
Is a screaming Indian call center.
99.
Hello, I'm speaking to Thomas, please.
I always pick up my phone, right? 99 times out of 100, it's going to be, we want to buy your house.
People are buying houses?
Yeah, occasionally the car warranty,
those are good.
Oh, they got Ric Flair selling those now. He's at a barber shop with all black people. It's the best ad you could ever see. Go find it.
Nice.
Go find it. It's called, what is that thing called? It's called like Car Shield. Yeah. Ric Flair for Car Shield in black barber shop. Just Google that.
So, Jack, I'm also curious, like one of the responsibilities for a program director is hiring on-air talent, right? And
He's responsible for us.
So what I know about on-air talent is it's like sexual partners, right? The crazier they are, the better they are.
That's why my wife's a pure, unadulterated dud in the sack. But she can run a house, I'll tell you that. She's an amazing human, but just a real dud.
So then you're like, all right, the crazier the better. But the problem is, then it's hard to manage a bunch of crazy.
The ones that can
Danny
grind,
Bonaducci. He's running, smoking cigarettes and cowboy boots.
He's riding an electric skateboard with a watermelon filled with vodka.
And then you're like, I can't get a whole room full of Bonaducci's. No. It's too much.
No.
So then
the crazy ones are the grinders, though. They'll get you.
So you have to weigh it out, and then you have to get some more responsible people. But responsible people are duds on the air.
Yeah, you have to balance it out. You have to have the duds take care of the crazy.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's this chemistry experiment, right? And it's that right formula, and it's the same thing in sports too. That personality, I'm
Antonio Brown.
Exactly who I was thinking of, right? Extremely disruptive, and at some point is he taking away from the success of the team, despite what he can do physically on the field, and it's finding that balance, and you don't know until you just throw it. Put it on, and when there's a problem, you try and identify it, correct. If you can't correct, you replace. Now, what's interesting with Real Radio is the lack of turnover we've had. And we rarely go out and hire someone for on the air. It's someone who's come up through the system. When you look at our 2 tentpole shows, both hosts have been on for 30 years.
Yeah, no, it's
I've
crazy.
been on 25 years.
It's an anomaly for sure, right?
Absolutely.
In the when I'm sure you're involved with, iHeart.
I thought you were going to say the Proud Boys.
Well,
I was big fan. I don't know what show we're on now.
And when you look around the country, is there anything like this?
No, there's a couple station. There is actually a Real Radio down in West Palm. They don't have the success that we do here. They're on a much smaller signal, but they're a fine station. They got some good people working on it. Matter of fact, the News Junkie program also airs down in West Palm. And then you have outside of iHeart, you have the Bone over in Tampa with our mutual friend and acquaintance Drew Garabo.
Yep.
on there. So it's like outside of those three, there are, and it's grown. When we were doing this back in the 90s and early 2000s, when you guys were there, it was, we were the anomaly at no station, and iHeart didn't. And at the time, Clear Channel, they're like, okay, it's working. We don't have a lot of other stations like it, which is good because they kind of took a hands-off approach to it, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Because there's no experts on this format because it's so rare. That FM, not politically driven, more personality driven talk. It's really like 3 morning shows. Morning, midday, and afternoon. So that's how they kind of have to tell themselves, is that's what we do. But the issue I have with our company is we are a talk station. So they have music, they have news talk. So they're like, okay, news talk. But most of their news talk is your political, conservative, right-leaning talk programming where they want to sell you, Jesus and gold and everything.
I love Jesus and gold.
I mean, those are the Jesus and gold, Jesus and gold. I mean, I'm so glad you were right there with me.
We should sell
love
gold.
Rankin and Bass.
Write that down.
I do love. I'm probably one of one. I do love the mismatched commercials on the station sometimes.
Yeah.
I like a good. They're stealing your home title.
Oh,
I like a good. Put it all in gold, and these things terrify me.
Perfect example.
As an older man, I'm terrified.
Perfect example of they're like, oh, we have this national campaign for a home title theft. We're going to get a conservative voice to voice it.
I'm Newt Gingrich,
and we're going to put it on the news talk stations, and so that's how it ends up on Real Radio. Our audience is more of a rock audience. Yeah. It's more closer to with our sister station WJRR. That's our they play modern rock. Yeah. So our audience is closer to match to that than it is the news AM news talk station. So that's a point of frustration, and even in your own company, because all of this stuff just comes from corporate, from national. They're like, people think I have control over the commercials. I control the other 45 minutes of the hour.
Yeah.
Someone else controls that 15 minutes that they spread out through the programming.
So when you mentioned like people coming up through the ranks and like, we obviously, me and Daniel did it, and we saw how it worked as far as like back in the day,
like Navy SEALs,
starting as an intern, or like
that was it.
You start as an intern, and then
that's how I started.
Yeah, you stuck around, and traditionally in radio, I feel like that's how a lot of people started. They interned, and there was armies of interns, and then the ones that stuck it out and then like stayed with it eventually ended up getting a job somewhere.
You'd usually wait for somebody to make a detrimental mistake.
And
you'd wait for. I know that sounds terrible, but it kind of is the truth. You would wait for something to fall apart, or somebody like to
shoot their dog and wife
their dog,
with one
or
bullet.
drug problem, or something, or addiction, and to take hold, and then you'd be like, "Well, I'm on my way."
And then if you were
moving on up.
were lucky enough, you would be a 48-year-old man named Boner. Because
you call your mom. You mean, mom, you're not gonna believe this. It all paid off.
Because your original radio name stuck with you the whole time, and nobody in the building.
What did you do, Jerry? Don't call me Jerry. I'm Boner.
Could ever change the name, because once, and I'm guilty of this too. Once they meet you as your radio intern name, it cannot be changed, even though when you're older, whatever.
Oh, at Johnny's, you were Drunky the Bear. Like when we were back at Johnny's for our Halloween, for our holiday party. I mean, like there were guys there that were like, I can't call him Tom. Physically can't.
Who's the oldest radio personality with the goofiest name? The
Dirty Jim.
No, he changed it.
No.
And even Buckethead changed it. Man Cow has to be.
Man Cow? Does he still go by Man Cow?
I think he does, right?
I think he goes by Adult Bovine now.
There's even people who've left radio, and you won't stop calling Matt Cabin Boy.
Well, he does that to bully him. Because you're a mean, bad person.
It's just that's how I met him, so I can't
Jack never had a goof name.
No. Credit to Jim Phillips, because he introduced me as Jack, and also threw my last name out there. I don't know. He saw something for me I didn't, but he's like, no, we're not doing that. And Jim Phillips also credit. They always treated their interns a little differently. What do you call it with that? Respect. That was it.
There was less hazing there. Yeah. It wasn't like go get my laundry, put on a maid costume. Act like a fool.
He
tase him.
He didn't make Angel pretend like he only knows.
You know
Spanish.
something?
I was just racist. That's fine.
At the time,
touche.
There's a lot of things we did when we look back. It's like
I know.
At the time it seemed okay.
Yeah, it did. He wanted to do it. In fact, I heard that Angel, in pretending that he couldn't speak English, learned skills that helped him later in life.
Love that.
Isn't that how we're spinning things now? Like it was skills that helped them.
Oh, so Jack, back
that's right.
Back to the interns.
It fell flat.
So with now, like I know a while ago, there's no more interns at iHeart, and they stopped that. But so how do new young people that want to get into the business?
It not only is it a great question, but that was a huge hurdle that we kind of had to overcome, and I'm not even sure if we have, because that was such where we're now. I think maybe a little less than half of our current on-air staff were interns. We haven't had interns in like 10 years. Right? But it was. They get on the air. Some of them adapt. That's how I did it. That's how you did it. And then you kind of prove that, hey, you guys are a much better show or station with me on it. They give you a job, and then, you can go from there. But without that intern program, it's just a matter of hiring somebody to either run the board. Someone fills in who works in another department, and if they do something that works, you have them back, and it becomes a little more frequent, but they don't get that on-air exposure to the level that interns did on a daily basis, where you can really kind of pull that thread, find that seam, and see if you have something that actually works, on the show, to be developed into something that can hopefully turn into a regular position or full time.
What do you enjoy most, behind the scenes or on air?
On air.
On air.
Yeah. I love the behind the scenes stuff, but that's where the fun is.
Yeah.
And man, I can be having a horrible day, and it can get stressful and stuff.
Sure.
But I know from 3 to 7, the design of the job is to have fun. So, if you're with your friends and the 3 other people on the Jim Colbert show, I consider them that, you're having fun during that 4 hours, and that's the idea, to make each other laugh, or, I always see it like you throwing a stone. If they're laughing, that ripples out, other people are laughing. And if not, they're not laughing. It's just because they're stupid, but other people are laughing.
That's what I say. Yeah, that's what I say all the time. Yeah,
but
these guys are idiots.
So you're having a good time by design. So by 7 o'clock, it's like that's just joy, and it's a blessing, and it's the thing I've always been most appreciative of. With
that's awesome.
Jack,
yeah, I feel the same way. This is the easy part, when we get to talk to our friends.
Yeah.
Like knowing you were coming in today, we got EJ out there. Although I will say EJ's been knocking all of our Christmas cards down out there.
What?
And I wasn't going to say anything, but he's so big and dumb that he's knocking everything down out there. Can you please stop destroying our studio? For the love of God.
So speaking of
that would be a forward promoting, right? EJ coming up.
I'm plugging.
Speaking of interns, Jack, and we've talked about this before, and I'm curious to get your opinion on it, because now that you are, upper management of iHeart, you talk to other managers.
For a long time now.
Big exaggeration there.
And then you talk to the lawyers. I'm sure you have the meetings. The number one
You've been
thing
in more uncomfortable meetings than we have.
Oh yeah.
Don't put yourself in a position to get sued, because I imagine like $billion corporations, all they worry about is getting sued, because that's their biggest liability, and so like they're all just worried about getting sued.
Just
be safe. And then Drunky the Bear jumps whatever he wants and does these ridiculous things. How did it happen, Jack? How did they let me do it so long?
God bless Catherine Brown. first of all.
It was her?
Catherine Brown was a program director before I was a program director. I love Catherine. She's a fantastic person. But recently we were at Linda Bird's retirement party. Linda Bird used to be the Orlando president for iHeart of all of our station, legend in the business, and she retired. Everyone was there, and I was, Catherine was speaking about her time, and I realized the 10 years I've been running the station, these have been calmer waters, but that late 90s, those 2000 years that you guys were pulling all this stuff, man, that was a different time. And that's more hair pulling and fearful and lawsuits and all of that stuff. How it got away, it's our station and the success of our station has always been being edgy, kind of pushing the envelope. Corporate and legal doesn't want you getting near the edge of that envelope. They don't want, to be in that gray area. So finding that balance, do you think we could get away with it? And if you can, most of the managers that I've dealt with at a higher level, if you can justify and explain why you thought what you were doing was a good idea and the benefits, if you thought about it and you could talk that out, chances are you're going to be okay. But if you're like, well, I wasn't paying attention, I didn't know what they were doing, that's not a good look.
But then if something does happen, and this is kind of what leads me to
maybe you're
back to
not
program
selling
director.
yourself. Maybe you're selling yourself a little short in the idea that, because you keep asking, the root question he keeps asking is, how did this happen? How did it happen? But maybe the answer is, and I know you're not going to like my answer, but just hear me out. You are like pretty even killed. You're not crazy, right? You're not completely unpredictable or anything. Maybe you were trustworthy when you explained what you were willing to do to people. They were like, that sounds all right to me. Like maybe it was you selling it. Maybe you sold it confidently. And that's why you were able to get it done.
Also, a lot of times I never asked.
That absolutely helps.
Ask for forgiveness.
I just never even said to anybody what I was going to do, and no one even knew until they saw it. And then once Linda Bird told me one day, she was just sitting up there watching, and she's like, "What's happening?"
Yeah, no, Linda would always say, "I didn't know what you were going to do." Okay.
You know what? And there's a little bit of plausible deniability there, right? Where it's like, I know they're up to stuff, but as long as they don't come to me with it, I don't have to say no.
Right.
And then if there's a problem, I can say, what were you thinking?
But I think they also knew, again, going back to giving you the compliment, I think they also knew that you weren't an idiot.
Yeah.
And you weren't going to do something that was like, you've done so many of these, your track record was pretty good. So, if you were doing one, it wasn't going to harm anybody else, and you would overthink it. They know you're going to overthink it, right?
I just laugh at how absurd
it is. Very absurd.
But even in this kind of leads me to a broader question with on-air, stunts, on-air bits, on-air things that were rampant. And I know nowadays it's not so much, but any of those things, and we've seen them before, in stories where one of them goes wrong or something, then everybody in the station is fired, including the program director. Usually,
we're talking to one of those guys. We're talking to one of those guys that did the sex in the church stunt for Opie and Anthony.
So
we've got that guy coming in. He was like the lookout.
So as your program director, you're constantly trying to push the envelope, but then the employees push it too far, and then it gets everybody fired. So that's got to be
nerve-wracking. Yeah. Like I said,
because at any day you're
confirmed,
and then you're listening to it happen, which is somehow worse. Where it's like you're in your office and you're like,
that's
oh no.
The one I've never been a part of, because normally when any of those were happening, I'm on the air yucking it up with literally no, I've got nothing, nothing gonna happen to me. But I've always wondered what it would feel like to be like a Linda, a Chris, a Jack, a Catherine, and you're driving into work and you turn it on and you're like, they're doing what? And then to be like that, like calling the hotline, driving faster, you know what I mean?
It's one of those things where I hate learning about it when it's happening in real time. Yeah, I like having a heads up, and so we can just make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position that a defendable position.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because if you go to the lawyers in advance, they're going to tell you no.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to find that it's a balancing act to find is the risk worth the reward, and can we do it without anyone getting permanently maimed?
Do you have a favorite? Since we know that the broadcasting aspect is your favorite, do you have a favorite time on the air that you can remember, or somebody you met that just sticks out as your favorite memory?
Just
I mean, that's a long.
I know
it is a lot of years.
It's hard for me to do it too because I'm pushing 30 years doing this as well, which is insane.
Just that 25 years on the air, on Real Radio, just that time. Working with Jim Phillips is that 20 years is priceless to me. And what's great about the past 5 with Jim Colbert, you might know him as Dirty Jim.
Yes, sir.
But it's been different and also great because I got to be a little more of me on the air because with on the Phillips file, Jim would have a topic. It would usually be news-based and stuff, and we'd interject, but it was a balance of more topics with a little personality, whereas the Monsters in the Morning was more personality and stunts and what they were doing, and then little less on the current events and the topics. Jim Colbert's show is, a kind of a balance of the two, where we have a little more of our personality along with the topic. So I got to be a little more of myself and reveal a lot more of myself now. And it's also different because I'm older now. My youngest kid is now 19. So at the time when you're a parent, you're not talking about Molly and weed and all the other
I'm the Molly weed dad.
We doubled it up.
So and now it's I don't give.
Nobody told me I'm not supposed to do that. I give my kid Molly.
Jack,
I still believe
I named my child Molly.
I mean, we'd have world peace if everyone was on this stuff. Just put it in the water.
Jack, I don't know if you hear us talk about how the FCC doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. We don't know.
Talk about hearing things that kind of make me uneasy.
Every day.
That's one of them.
Jack, I go on LinkedIn. I go on LinkedIn every day. I type in FCC, nothing. Nothing there. Nothing on LinkedIn.
I don't worry about your content. What I worry about is someone at the FCC and, oh, yeah, we'll show him.
Oh, yeah. They would do that. They would do that. Yeah, that's more feasible.
That's what I worry about.
That's more feasible than them doing their job. Totally.
Come and get us, Mr. CC.
No, that's the pizza chain.
Pizza,
you don't want that guy. You don't want to be on that guy's bad side.
Anyway, so does it exist, Jack?
Yeah.
I mean, but it's got to be less than it was. Speaking of,
Tom thinks they're cooler now.
So I just feel like their priorities have changed, and it's become nearly impossible for them to differentiate, whether something's coming through the internet or through the terrestrial radio signal.
Hey, somehow they figure it out. And a lot of it's with the encoding because there are digital watermarks on what we put out, and it's where.
There's one.
Where
Who's made one?
Write that down. Digital watermark.
I believe it.
We're gonna need one of those. Yeah.
There is something that that people listening to this, if they're listening on Real Radio, there's a watermark that they can't hear. Their dogs can hear it, but they can't hear it. But there's ways they can figure that out. And their fines still happen. We get, it's in the trade industry magazines. You see it, and then you kind of warn people, hey, just remember, don't say this, don't do this.
Big Frog got a fine in Kentucky.
But I remember there was environments and the culture would change. I was around it when it was I remember when the the halftime show booby thing changed radio.
Booby. What are you?
You're right. Yeah,
I forgot her name.
Wardrobe malfunction.
Yeah,
you're
wardrobe
right.
malfunction.
Booby.
And then there was there was a mandate.
I went there one time to Dr. Booby when the booby fell out.
And it was
I want to hit you right now.
And then at that time it was stay away from anything sexual. And then
I went for the booby.
Yeah. So culturally it's that pendulum swinging, and I remember Jim Phillips talking about it at the time when we were dealing with this on the air. That pendulum swings, and it keeps going in a direction. Then there's the backlash. It goes to an extreme, and then there's the backlash. So by the way, Justin Timberlake getting away with that whole Janet Jackson thing. It's like he's the one who ripped off her. Top. Yeah, she was the villain. That's wild.
No. He should have never exposed that to her. He was horrified.
Yeah. So
nobody wanted to see that. I blame him for that.
And so, but that event happened, and then comes the overcorrection. And and at the time it was Clear Channel, they're so afraid of losing licenses and getting fines that we are going to set standards that are even stricter than the FCC is asking for to make sure that we are in compliance. That is when Howard Stern, they had the head-to-head with Howard Stern. He said, I'm not going to agree to your new rules, and was no longer on any Clear Channel station. So that created that rift. And then, over time, the standards change, and the pendulum kind of swings back to center until it'll go too far in the other direction. Then you'll see an overcorrection again. But it's secular,
Does any of that happen
back and forth.
Recently that you've seen, like any sort of trends or like I guess mandates of like, hey, stay away from this? It seems like there's just so much out there that there's no really prevailing trend as much as there is.
I'm sure there are. Well, we just may not be.
Yeah, the media or the internet's diluted everything.
Yeah, not to the point where it's an FCC violation, but more to the point where it goes against what your audience is responding to. So 20 years ago, we were dealing with the, sexual content on air and cursing and all of that stuff. That was that whole still it's known as the Janet Jackson effect. What I personally noticed was the Trump effect that we saw in 2016, which to this day has affected talk radio. And it is how we had to adjust, and because it used to be, up until that point, you could talk politics, you could disagree, you'd have people who listened who disagreed, and then you move on. I've been through, every 4 years you had that presidential cycle going through, but it just kept getting a little more and more toxic through the Obama presidencies. The discourse on air kept getting a little worse, and then with Trump, what you had was the people who liked him could not handle you saying anything negative about him, and they said, we're not going to listen again. We're not going to listen. Where in the past, they wouldn't like it, but you'd still listen. You could have a discourse. But it came so toxic and divisive that talking about it did not help you grow an audience. And ultimately, we want the largest audience we can. So unless you are going to be a specialty show on conservative radio where you are just going to talk this, or a specialty liberal talk show, which I'm not sure they exist, if you are an entertainment-based personality talk show, you kind of have to clear out a lot of that discourse. And that is why I have the problem when we're seen as a news talk station in the company, and they put a lot of this programming, or at least promos, on your station that don't really fit your brand.
Yeah,
gotcha.
You may not even want to deal with that, and then you're still having to deal with that.
Yeah.
So, that is interesting.
It's not you're not going to avoid it. There's going to be things that you can't avoid. However, you don't have to go running towards it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Jack, I guess we'll end this with an uncomfortable question, but I have to ask you,
what the hell's wrong with you?
How much money you make, Jack? what are we talking here? So, they got to pay you more since you're actually on air and program. Which, by the way, are there a lot of program directors that are on air? Like, does that happen?
There are some, rarity? But what's interesting about that, for me to be on air, that's real time because we are a live talk show. So that's 4 hours of my day just on air. Then you have the prep time. So that's, let's call it 5 hours a day is just devoted to doing the show. Doesn't leave a lot of time to be program director. A lot of the program directors who are also on air, it could be music, where you can voice track a music shift in an hour. So that's an hour of your day.
Like Big Frog, he'll be like, what's up, it's Big Frog. I'm program director, and I'm also the host of the Liquid Lunch.
Right.
Come check me out later at Liquid Lunch. We're playing 2-for-1 Metallica all day long.
However, program directors now, just over this past 15 years, as you see, they let people go. They take that work, they give it to the people who are still around. So they are program directors of several stations. I have had other stations, and I keep kicking them back, and so I can keep all my focus on Real Radio because it's a passion.
I keep giving him the Spanish station, and he's like, yuck.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. You're not racist.
Well,
I was joking. I was trying to assassinate your character.
It's awesome.
I appreciate that.
And I grow to appreciate what Real Radio is and how
Don't
special
lie to Jack
it is.
right to
No,
his face.
no,
Oh my God, that's a bullface
Now he's gonna
lie.
kiss your ass.
No,
this
serious.
guy's lying.
Says yes, how much you make, and you
What did he
read the
say?
question.
He say, hold a special place in my heart? Nothing holds it. He has no heart.
In this format, you guys have been on the station almost 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, I know. It's great. We're celebrating our ACT 10-year anniversary coming up at the
We're
beginning
doing
of the
it
year.
in Atlantis in the Bahamas. Are you coming?
Yeah.
10
And we're
years
selling
of
a
ACT.
hoodie.
I remember we were at an Orlando City when they won in the USL Pro. They won the cup. We're at the party. And Daniel said, man, he was congratulating me on being promoted.
Yeah.
And he said, I wish we could have worked together. I said, well, the chapter hasn't been written yet. And, you know, we've been working together for
Jack
10
did
years.
it.
And 100%. It's because
Boss
of Jack.
man Jack.
Like, because
100%.
Jack's,
I appreciate it.
We always say it's you.
Thank you.
Like,
if it was another, like, imagine if they brought in some
No, it would've never
corporate
happened.
D-head,
Don't want
and
that.
then, like,
Boo.
and, you know, we would have gone to war.
I'd
And
have
we
messed
would
that
have
guy
been
up so
messy,
bad. I'd
and
be
then
so
we
mean
all
to
would
him.
have
So mean to him.
been less successful. And because of that, I appreciate you,
Yeah,
Jack.
man. We love you,
thank
Jack.
for
Good.
being
And I
so
believe
cool.
that threat just out there is a little job security on my
Oh,
head.
we'll get him so bad. If it ever
appreciate
happens,
that.
we
I
will
appreciate that.
crap all over him.
and we'll burn ourselves down in the
Oh,
process.
yeah. In the process. Oh, because you know
It's
we're
crazy,
reckless.
actually.
Yeah, we're reckless.
Let's go.
Jack, we appreciate
We
it.
love you, man. Merry Christmas.
Love
Happy
you
New
too.
Year.
Yeah,
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and thank you very much.
Give Naomi some love, too,
Will
and the
do.
fam, all the
Will
kiddos.
do.
Yep. And we will be back with more Weird Job Wednesdays.